I stood frozen in my own hallway, my hand pressed against the wall to steady myself. Through the crack in the guest room door, I heard my daughter-in-law's voice, sharp with triumph. The old hag finally gave us the deed. Can you believe it? That lake house is ours now. My son laughed, actually laughed, and said something I couldn't quite hear. My heart pounded so hard I thought they might hear it through the door. Because what Jessica didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that the deed I'd handed over that morning wasn't real. Let me back up, because you need to understand how I got to that moment. 3 months ago, I was sitting in my lawyer's office, updating my will, when the idea first came to me. At 76 years old, I thought I had my son Marcus figured out. I thought I knew who he'd become after marrying Jessica 5 years ago. But something in my gut kept whispering that I was wrong, that I was missing something important. My late husband Tom always said I was too trusting, too willing to see the best in people. Standing in that hallway, listening to them mock me, I finally understood what he meant. My son Marcus was my only child. After his father died 8 years ago, it became just the two of us for a while. We had Sunday dinners every week, called each other every few days. He was a good son back then, attentive, caring, present. Then he met Jessica at some tech conference in Seattle. She worked in marketing, came from money, and had that polished look that made me feel like a simple country woman in comparison. I tried to like her. I really did. When Marcus brought her home for the first time, I cooked his favorite pot roast, set out my good china, even bought fresh flowers for the table. Jessica walked through my door in a white pantsuit, took one look around my modest 3-bedroom home, and I saw something flicker across her face. Not quite disgust, but close to it. She smiled, though, and said all the right things. What a cozy home, Mrs. Patterson. Cozy. That's what people say when they mean small, but I pushed those feelings aside. Marcus was happy, and that's what mattered. When they got engaged, I gave them $15,000 toward the wedding. I didn't have much, but Tom's life insurance and our savings had left me comfortable enough. Jessica wanted a destination wedding in Napa Valley. $15,000 barely covered the flowers, but she never said thank you. Not once. After the wedding, things changed slowly. The Sunday dinners became every other week, then once a month, then only on holidays. Marcus stopped calling as much. When he did call, Jessica was always there in the background, and I could hear her sighing or making comments. Tell your mother we can't do Christmas at her place this year. The heating is terrible. Marcus would just relay the message like he was her secretary. I owned 3 properties. My home here in Richmond, a small rental duplex downtown that brought in some income, and the lake house. Oh, that lake house. It sat on 4 acres right on Lake Anna, about 90 miles from Richmond. Tom and I had bought it 30 years ago when it was just a rundown cabin. We spent every summer there, fixed it up ourselves, added a deck, renovated the kitchen. That house held every good memory I had of my marriage. Marcus learned to swim in that lake. We celebrated his graduations there, his birthdays. The property was worth close to $800,000 now. Waterfront property in Virginia isn't cheap anymore. I knew Marcus and Jessica wanted it. Jessica had made comments about it being wasted on me since I only used it a few weeks a year. But I wasn't ready to let it go. Not yet. Little did I know, they were about to force my hand. It started on my 76th birthday, this past April. Marcus called me the week before, said they wanted to take me out for a nice dinner. I was thrilled. I wore my good dress, the navy one with the pearl buttons, and even got my hair done at the salon. They picked me up at 6, and Jessica was on her phone the entire drive to the restaurant. We got to this fancy steakhouse in Short Pump, the kind with dim lighting and prices that make your eyes water. The hostess led us to a table, and I noticed Marcus seemed nervous. He kept fiddling with his napkin, wouldn't meet my eyes. About halfway through the appetizers, I'd ordered the calamari, trying to be adventurous. Marcus cleared his throat. "Mom, we wanted to talk to you about something." "Of course, sweetheart." "What is it?" Jessica set down her phone for the first time all evening and leaned forward. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "We've been thinking about our future. Marcus and I want to start a family soon, but we need more space." "That's wonderful," I said, my heart leaping. "A grandchild. Finally." "Your townhouse is a bit small, but we want the lake house," Marcus interrupted, just like that, blunt as a hammer. "We want you to sign it over to us now so we can fix it up, make it our permanent home." I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. The lake house. "But that's where your father and I—" "It's just sitting there, Mom," Jessica said, her voice taking on that patient tone people use with children. "You barely use it. 2 weeks last summer, that's it. It's not practical. We could make it our home, raise our children there. Isn't that better than it sitting empty?" "I use it more than 2 weeks," I said weakly. "And I'm not ready to—" "We're not asking you to leave your house," Marcus said quickly. "We just think the lake house makes more sense for us. You'd still be welcome to visit, obviously. Visit my own lake house." "I need time to think about this," I said. Jessica's expression hardened. "We're trying to plan our future, Margaret. We can't wait forever." The rest of dinner was tense. They'd already decided, I realized. This wasn't a request. It was an ultimatum. When they dropped me off that night, Marcus hugged me briefly, but Jessica stayed in the car, scrolling on her phone. But that was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, the pressure intensified. Marcus called every few days, each conversation circling back to the lake house. "Have you thought about what we discussed?" he'd ask. "Jessica's been looking at contractors." "Mom, we really need to know soon." Then the visits started. Unannounced visits where they'd show up at my door with measuring tapes and paint samples. Jessica would walk through my house critiquing everything. "This wallpaper is so dated, Margaret. When we move you to a retirement community, we'll have to gut this whole place." "I'm not moving to a retirement community," I said firmly. "Not yet," she replied with a smile, "but eventually." One Saturday in May, they showed up with an architect, an actual architect, walking around my lake house like he owned it, taking measurements, talking about knocking down walls. I'd driven up there to get away from their constant pressure, and they'd followed me. "You can't just invite people to my property," I said, my voice shaking. "Mom, we're trying to plan," Marcus said. "Don't be difficult." Difficult. My own son called me difficult for not wanting to hand over a property worth nearly $1 million. The breaking point came in June. I'd invited them for Sunday dinner, my attempt to smooth things over, to get back some semblance of our old relationship. I spent all day cooking. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, Marcus's favorite peach cobbler. The house smelled like home should smell. They arrived an hour late. Jessica walked in, looked at the table and said, "Oh, we already ate. We had brunch with my parents." I felt tears prick my eyes, but blinked them back. "I've been cooking all day." "Well, we didn't know," Jessica said, though I'd texted Marcus that morning confirming the time. "Maybe we can take some as leftovers." That's when I discovered something that changed everything. While they were in the living room, I went to get containers for the food. Jessica's purse was on the kitchen counter and her phone buzzed. The screen lit up and I saw a text from someone named Diane, Realtor. "Still waiting on that deed. The buyers are getting impatient," This could close for $850,000 if we move fast. My blood ran cold. They weren't planning to live there. They were planning to sell it. I said nothing that day. I packaged up the food, handed it to them with a smile, and watched them leave. Then I sat at my kitchen table and cried for an hour. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Robert Chen. We'd worked together for 20 years, since Tom first set up our estate. "Robert," I said, "I need your help with something unusual." What they didn't know was that I'd been poor once, truly poor. I grew up in Appalachia, in a house without running water until I was 12. I worked my way through community college, met Tom at a diner where I waitressed. We built everything from nothing. And along the way, I learned that when people show you who they really are, you better believe them. I spent the next 2 weeks crafting my plan. Robert thought I was crazy at first, but eventually he understood. "Are you sure about this, Margaret?" he asked. "I've never been more sure of anything," I told him. By July, everything was in place. I called Marcus and asked him and Jessica to come over. "I've made my decision," I told him, "about the lake house." They arrived within an hour, both of them trying to hide their eagerness. We sat in my living room, and I pulled out an envelope. "I've thought about what you said," I began. "About family, about the future. And you're right, that house shouldn't just sit there." Jessica leaned forward, her eyes bright. "So, I'm signing it over to you both," I said. "The deed is in this envelope. It's yours." Marcus actually jumped up and hugged me. "Mom, thank you. You won't regret this." Jessica took the envelope like it was made of gold. This is wonderful, Margaret. Really." "There's just one thing," I said quietly. "I'd like to spend one last month there this summer, alone, to say goodbye to the place. Is that all right?" "Of course," Marcus said quickly. "Take all the time you need." They left 20 minutes later, barely able to contain their excitement. Through my front window, I watched them get in their car. Jessica was already on her phone, probably calling that realtor. I sat back down in my chair and waited. Little did they know, the worst was yet to come. The 4th of July weekend arrived, and I told Marcus I was heading to the lake house for my goodbye month. In reality, I was there to watch and wait. I'd installed a security camera system the week before, small, discreet cameras that Robert's tech-savvy nephew helped me set up. They streamed directly to my iPad. On July 3rd, around noon, I saw a car pull up to the lake house. Jessica and Marcus got out, along with a woman in a business suit, the realtor, I assumed. They had a key. I'd given Marcus a spare years ago. They walked right in like they owned the place, because they thought they did. I watched on my iPad from my Richmond house as they walked the realtor through every room. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see Jessica gesturing animatedly, pointing out features, probably already spending the money in her head. They were there for over an hour. After they left, I drove back to the lake house. Everything looked the same, but something felt violated. They'd been in my space, counting their chickens before they hatched. That evening, Marcus called. "Hey, Mom, how's the lake house?" "Peaceful," I said. "Very peaceful." "Good, good. You deserve the rest." He paused. "Listen, I know this is hard for you, giving up the place. But you're doing the right thing." I almost laughed. The right thing. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you love me?" Silence. Then, "Of course I do, Mom." What kind of question is that? "I just wonder sometimes," I said softly. "You used to call me every day. Now it's once a week if I'm lucky." "I'm busy, Mom. Jessica and I have careers. We're building a life. You understand?" "I understand more than you think," I said. "Good night, Marcus." I hung up before he could respond. The next few weeks were torture. I stayed at the lake house, watching on my cameras as they brought contractors, interior designers, even a staging company. They were moving fast, trying to get the house ready to sell before I caught on. Jessica posted photos on Instagram. I didn't follow her, but my neighbor's daughter showed me, with captions like "New Beginnings" and "Dream Home in Progress." Then came the moment I'd been waiting for and dreading in equal measure. July 28th. I was at the lake house sitting on the deck with my morning coffee when I heard a car. Marcus and Jessica pulled up along with two other people, a middle-aged couple in expensive-looking clothes. The buyers, I realized. I stayed outside, watching through the deck railing as they all went inside. 20 minutes later, they came back out, the couple nodding and smiling. Jessica was practically glowing. They shook hands, and the couple left. Marcus and Jessica went back inside. I waited 5 minutes, then quietly walked to the guest room window. It was open a crack. I'd left it that way on purpose. And that's when I heard it. "The old hag finally gave us the deed," Jessica said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "Can you believe it? That lake house is ours now." Marcus laughed, actually laughed. "I know. I thought she'd hold on to it until she died just to spite us. She's so sentimental about this place." "Your father and I built our dreams here," Jessica mocked in a whiny voice. "Please. It's just a house. A very expensive house that's about to make us $850,000 richer." "We should celebrate," Marcus said. "We will. As soon as this sale closes. 2 more weeks, and we can stop pretending to care about her feelings." My hands were shaking, my vision blurred with tears. I'd known they were using me, but hearing it said out loud, hearing my son, my only child, laugh about deceiving me, it broke something inside me. I stood there in my own yard, at the house where I'd raised my son during summer vacations, where we'd had bonfires and taught him to fish, and I felt more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. Even after Tom died, I'd had Marcus. Or I thought I had Marcus, but I didn't. I'd lost my son somewhere along the way, and Jessica had been there to catch the shell of him that remained. I walked back to the deck and sat down heavily in my chair. My chest hurt. Not a heart attack. I'd had those scares before, but the deep, aching pain of betrayal. At 76 years old, I was learning that the worst wounds aren't physical. They came outside 10 minutes later and saw me sitting there. Marcus looked startled. "Mom, I didn't know you were home. I've been here all morning," I said quietly. "Did you need something?" "Oh, we were just showing the house to some friends," Jessica said quickly. "They might be interested in renting a place on the lake." Lies. More lies. I looked at Marcus, really looked at him, and saw nothing of the little boy who used to hold my hand, the teenager who cried on my shoulder when his first girlfriend broke his heart, the young man who'd given such a beautiful eulogy at his father's funeral. "That's nice," I said. "I hope they liked it." After they left, I went inside and called Robert. "It's time," I said. "Are you absolutely certain?" he asked. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." That's when I knew exactly what I had to do. Here's what Marcus and Jessica didn't know. When Robert and I had prepared that deed, we'd been very careful. He'd used official paper, the county seal, all the right formatting. But hidden in the legal language, in a paragraph near the bottom that most people skip over, was a clause that made the entire deed conditional and revocable. More importantly, I'd never actually filed it with the county clerk's office. A deed isn't valid until it's recorded. Until that happens, it's just a fancy piece of paper with no legal weight whatsoever. Marcus and Jessica had been walking around for nearly a month, believing they owned my lake house, making plans, promising it to buyers, when they owned nothing at all. But I'd gone further than that. With Robert's help, I'd hired a private investigator named Linda Morrison. She'd been following them, documenting everything. The meetings with realtors, the contractors they'd hired and told to bill to the owners. Even Jessica's text messages to her mother bragging about tricking the old woman into giving up her property. Linda had given me a thick folder of evidence. Photographs, transcripts, financial records showing they'd already spent $12,000 on renovations to a house they didn't legally own. They'd even taken out a line of credit against their townhouse to cover the costs, banking on the lake house sale to pay it back. They were leveraged, exposed, and completely unaware. On August 1st, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. The message was from someone named Patricia Holloway, the buyer Jessica and Marcus had lined up. She wanted to know when we could schedule the closing. I called her back. "Mrs. Holloway, this is Margaret Patterson. I believe there's been some confusion. Oh, you must be Marcus's mother. He spoke so highly of you. Thank you so much for agreeing to sell. My husband and I have been looking for a lake house for 3 years. Mrs. Holloway, I hate to tell you this, but I haven't agreed to sell anything. The house is still mine." Silence. Then, "I'm sorry, what?" Jessica and Marcus said the deed had been transferred. They showed us documentation. "We've already put down earnest money." "I would suggest you speak with your real estate attorney," I said gently, "and get that earnest money back as quickly as possible." I could hear her sharp intake of breath. "Are you saying they don't own the property?" "I'm saying the deed was never filed with the county. You can verify this yourself through public records. I'm very sorry you were misled." After I hung up, I sat back and waited. It would take Mrs. Holloway maybe an hour to verify what I'd told her. Then all hell would break loose. It took 37 minutes. My phone rang, Marcus calling from Jessica's phone. I let it ring. He called again, and again. Then texts started flooding in. "Mom, call me immediately. There's a problem with the sale. We need to talk. Mom, please. This is serious." I turned off my phone and poured myself a glass of sweet tea. While they were plotting against me, I'd been 10 steps ahead. While they were counting money that would never be theirs, I was documenting every lie, every manipulation, every cruel word. The next morning, I turned my phone back on. 23 missed calls, 16 voicemails, 32 texts. I didn't listen to any of them. Instead, I sent a single message to Marcus. "Come to the lake house tomorrow at 2 p.m. Both of you. It's time we talked." That evening, I got a call from a number with an 804 area code. Richmond. I answered. "Mrs. Patterson? This is Detective James Rodriguez with Richmond PD. I need to speak with you about a fraud complaint that's been filed." My heart skipped. "A complaint against me?" "No, ma'am. A complaint you may want to file. I've been contacted by a Patricia Holloway who says she was defrauded in a real estate deal. She gave me your name as the actual property owner." "I see. She said 2 people representing themselves as property owners took earnest money from her for a house they didn't actually own. That's wire fraud, ma'am. It's a serious crime. Would you be willing to come in and make a statement?" I thought about Marcus as a little boy. Marcus at 8, learning to ride a bike, scraped knees and tears. Marcus at 16, nervous about his driver's test. Marcus at 22, graduating college, his future bright and full of promise. Then I thought about the man who'd laughed about deceiving his own mother, who'd called me an old hag, who'd been ready to pocket nearly $1 million from selling my property without a shred of guilt. Yes, I told the detective. I'll come in tomorrow morning. The next morning, I drove to the Richmond Police Department and spent 2 hours with Detective Rodriguez. I showed him everything: the deed with its revocation clause, the bank records showing it was never filed, Linda's investigation report, the camera footage of them bringing contractors and buyers through my property, text message screenshots that Linda had obtained through legal channels showing their whole scheme. Detective Rodriguez was a man in his 40s with kind eyes and a wedding ring. He looked at me with something like sadness when I finished. "Mrs. Patterson, I have to ask, how did you know they were going to do this?" "I didn't know," I said honestly. "I suspected. My husband used to say I was too trusting. I decided to find out if he was right. By setting a trap. By giving them enough rope," I corrected. "They did the rest themselves." He nodded slowly. "The district attorney will need to review this, but based on what you've shown me, your son and daughter-in-law attempted to defraud a buyer by selling property they didn't own. They accepted earnest money under false pretenses. That's criminal fraud. They could face charges." "I understand. Are you sure you want to proceed with this?" "He's your son." I looked down at my hands. At 76, they were wrinkled and spotted with age, but they were still strong. These hands had changed Marcus's diapers, held him through nightmares, applauded at his school plays, helped him move into his first apartment. "My son," I said slowly, "called me an old hag and laughed about tricking me out of my property. He's made his choices. Now he has to live with them." Detective Rodriguez made some calls while I waited. 20 minutes later, he came back into the interview room. "2 officers are being dispatched to serve your son and daughter-in-law with a request to come in for questioning. We can wait to arrest them until after they've had a chance to explain. But Mrs. Patterson, you should know, this is moving forward. Once the wheels of justice start turning, they're hard to stop." "Good," I said. I went home and waited. At 1 p.m., Robert arrived at my house. "Are you ready for this?" he asked. "I was born ready," I told him. We drove to the lake house together. Robert was there as both my attorney and my witness. Whatever happened in the next few hours, I wanted it documented. They arrived at exactly 2 p.m. Marcus's car pulled into the driveway too fast, sending gravel flying. They both got out, and I could see the panic on their faces, even from the deck where I sat waiting. Jessica got there first. "Margaret, what is going on? We had the police at our door this morning. They said something about fraud." "Come inside," I said calmly. "Let's talk." We all went into the living room. Marcus was pale, his hands shaking. Jessica was angry, her jaw set. Robert sat in the corner with his briefcase, saying nothing. "The sale fell through," Marcus said immediately. "The buyers did a title search and said the deed wasn't valid." "Mom, did you not file the paperwork?" "I did not," I said. "Well, that's easily fixed. We just need to go to the county office and—" "No, Marcus. It's not easily fixed, because I'm not filing it." Jessica stood up. "What are you talking about? You gave us that house. You signed the deed. You can't just take it back." "I can, actually." "Read the deed more carefully. There's a revocation clause. The transfer was conditional on certain terms, and those terms were never met. But it doesn't matter, because a deed isn't valid until it's recorded. You never owned the lake house." The color drained from Marcus's face. "But we told the buyers. We took their deposit." $25,000 in earnest money, I said. "Yes, I know." Patricia Holloway is a very nice woman. She's also very angry. She's filed charges against you both for fraud." "Fraud?" Jessica's voice was shrill. "You set us up." You gave us a fake deed. I gave you a test, I said quietly. I wanted to see what you would do. And you showed me exactly who you are. Marcus shook his head, looking between me and Robert. Mom, there has to be a misunderstanding. We would never. I pulled out my iPad and played the security camera footage from July 28th. Their voices came through the speakers, crystal clear. The old hag finally gave us the deed. I thought she'd hold on to it until she died just to spite us. We can stop pretending to care about her feelings. I watched Marcus's face as he listened to his own words. He looked like he might be sick. I heard every word, I said. I was standing right outside that window. Jessica recovered first. She always was quicker on her feet. Margaret, you can't use that. Recording someone without consent is illegal in Virginia. Actually, Robert spoke up for the first time, Virginia is a one-party consent state. Mrs. Patterson was on her own property. The recording is completely legal and admissible. You planned this, Jessica hissed. You set us up from the beginning. No, I said firmly. I gave you a choice. I gave you my trust, my property, my love. You chose to betray all of it. You chose to lie to buyers, take their money, and mock me behind my back. Marcus finally found his voice. Mom, please. We made a mistake. We got carried away, but you can fix this. Just file the deed. We'll give the money back to the buyers. Everything will be fine. Everything will not be fine, Marcus. You committed fraud. You damaged my property, $12,000 in unauthorized renovations that I didn't approve. You tried to steal from me. Steal? Jessica laughed bitterly. You were going to leave it to him anyway. We just wanted it sooner. No, I said. You wanted to sell it. You never planned to live here, to raise your children here. You saw dollar signs and nothing else. The doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see a police car in the driveway. Marcus saw it too. His face crumpled. Mom, don't do this. Please. I'm your son. For a moment, just a moment, I felt my resolve waver. This was my baby boy, the child I'd carried, birthed, raised, the one I'd have died for without hesitation. But then I remembered his laugh, that cruel, dismissive laugh when Jessica called me an old hag. You were my son, I said softly. I don't know who you are now. Detective Rodriguez came in with a female officer I didn't recognize. They both had that cop expression, neutral, professional, but with an undercurrent of authority that filled the room. Mr. and Mrs. Powell, Rodriguez said, we need you to come to the station to answer some questions about an alleged fraud complaint. This is ridiculous, Jessica said immediately. We haven't done anything wrong. This woman gave us that property. Rodriguez looked at me, then back at them. Did you or did you not accept $25,000 in earnest money from Patricia and David Holloway for the sale of property located at 2847 Lake Vista Drive? Yes, but did you represent yourself as the legal owners of said property? Jessica went quiet. Marcus looked at his shoes. I need you both to come with us. You're not under arrest at this time, but you need to answer these questions downtown. We're not going anywhere without our lawyer, Jessica said. That's your right. You can call your lawyer from the station. Let's go. As they moved toward the door, Marcus turned back to me. His eyes were red, whether from fear or tears, I couldn't tell. Mom, I know I messed up, but please don't do this. We're family. I stood up and walked over to him. Up close, I could see the boy I'd raised underneath the man he'd become. But I could also see the weakness, the entitlement, the willingness to hurt others for his own gain. Family doesn't steal from each other, I said. Family doesn't mock each other behind their backs. Family doesn't lie and cheat and manipulate. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Jessica, she pushed me to do this. She said you'd never know, that it would all work out. Even now he was blaming his wife, taking no responsibility for his own choices. Marcus, look at me. I waited until his eyes met mine. Every step of the way, you had a choice. When Jessica suggested taking my property, you could have said no. When you called me difficult for not immediately handing over an $800,000 asset, you could have apologized. When you took that earnest money from those buyers, you knew what you were doing was wrong. I needed the money, he said desperately. We have debts. The credit cards are maxed out. Jessica's parents cut her off when she married me because I'm not good enough for them. We're drowning, Mom. Then you ask for help. You don't commit fraud. Mr. Powell, Rodriguez said, we need to go now. Jessica was already at the door, her face like stone. This isn't over, Margaret. You humiliated us. You trapped us. I will fight this, and I will make sure everyone knows what a vindictive old woman you are. Jessica, I said calmly, you committed a crime. You stole from innocent people. You conspired to defraud your own mother-in-law. I didn't trap you. I simply gave you the opportunity to show your true character, and you did. She looked like she wanted to spit at me, but with the police standing right there, she just turned and walked out. Marcus lingered for one more moment. I love you, Mom. I know you don't believe me, but I do. I believe you love me the way you're capable of loving anyone, I said, but it's not enough. It was never going to be enough. After they left, I sat down heavily on the couch. My hands were still shaking. Robert came over and sat beside me. Are you all right? He asked. No, I said honestly, but I will be. What they said about debts, did you know they were in financial trouble? I suspected. Jessica always had expensive taste, and Marcus never knew how to say no to her. But that doesn't excuse what they did. No, Robert agreed. It doesn't. We sat in silence for a few minutes, listening to the lake lap against the shore outside. What happens now? I asked. The DA will review the evidence. Given the clear documentation, they'll likely offer a plea deal. Restitution, probation, maybe community service. If Marcus and Jessica refuse the plea and go to trial, they could face jail time. Fraud at this level is a felony. A felony. My son, a felon. Your son made choices, Robert reminded me gently. Bad choices. But you didn't make them for him. I knew he was right, but knowing it and feeling it were two different things. That evening, alone in the lake house, I walked out onto the deck where Tom and I used to sit and watch the sunset. The sky was painted in oranges and pinks, and the water reflected it like a mirror. It was beautiful. It had always been beautiful. I hope I did the right thing, I whispered to Tom, wherever he was. I hope you're not disappointed in me. The wind picked up, rippling the water, and I chose to believe that was his answer. The next 2 weeks were a blur of phone calls, legal meetings, and long nights lying awake wondering if I'd destroyed my family. Marcus called me 17 times. I didn't answer. He sent texts, apologies, explanations, justifications, accusations. I read them all but responded to none. Jessica left one voicemail. Just one. You'll never see your grandchildren, she said, her voice cold. When Marcus and I have kids, they'll never know you existed. That's your punishment for what you've done to us. The threat landed exactly where she intended it to. My grandchildren, children who didn't even exist yet, held hostage to my desire for justice. But I couldn't back down. Not now. On August 15th, Robert called with an update. The DA offered a plea deal. Full restitution to the Holloways. That's the $25,000 in earnest money, plus their legal fees, about $32,000 total, plus restitution to you for the unauthorized renovations, $12,000, 3 years probation, 100 hours of community service each, and they have to stay away from you, a restraining order that they agreed to. They took it. They signed this morning. The alternative was going to trial and potentially facing 5 years in prison. Their lawyer made it very clear that with your evidence, they'd lose. So it's over. The criminal case, yes. But Mrs. Patterson, you should know, they filed for bankruptcy yesterday. Between the restitution, their legal fees, and their existing debts, they're drowning. They're probably going to lose their townhouse. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. The townhouse? But that's where they live. They'll have to rent somewhere, probably something much smaller. It's going to be hard for them. After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table and cried, not because I regretted what I'd done, but because it still hurt. Justice doesn't heal all wounds. Sometimes it just makes different ones. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized Marcus's handwriting on the envelope. Inside was a single piece of notebook paper. Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I forgive myself. Jessica and I are separating. Turns out when the money and the schemes fall apart, there's not much left. I'm moving into a friend's basement until I can get back on my feet. I know I betrayed you. I know I hurt you worse than anyone ever should. You were right. I had choices at every step, and I made the wrong ones. I can't blame Jessica for that. I can't blame anyone but myself. I loved that lake house. I loved the memories we had there. But I loved the idea of money more, and that makes me sick. Dad would be ashamed of me. I'm ashamed of me. I'm not asking you to fix this. I'm just asking you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. And if you can find it in your heart someday to talk to me again, I'll be here, however long it takes. Your son, Marcus. I read that letter 5 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my dresser drawer next to Tom's old watch and the photos from Marcus's childhood. Forgiveness isn't something you decide once. It's something you choose over and over, day after day. And I wasn't ready to choose it yet. Maybe I never would be. But I kept the letter, which meant something. In September, I got a call from Patricia Holloway. Mrs. Patterson, I wanted to thank you. We got our money back, all of it. I'm glad, I said. I also wanted to apologize. I said some harsh things about you at first before I knew the whole story. I thought you were a vengeful old woman trying to ruin her son. But my lawyer showed me the evidence, and I understand now. What they did to you, I can't imagine. Thank you, Mrs. Holloway. Call me Patricia. And Mrs. Patterson, if you ever do decide to sell that lake house, we'd still be interested. At a fair price, of course. Through proper channels. I laughed. The first real laugh I'd had in months. I'll keep that in mind. But I wasn't selling. Not now. Maybe not ever. I'm sitting here at the lake house as I tell you this story. The same deck where Tom and I spent 30 summers together. Where Marcus learned to swim. Where I caught my son in a lie that cost him everything. At 76 years old, I've learned that love and boundaries aren't opposites. They're companions. I loved my son enough to stop him from becoming a worse version of himself. I loved him enough to let him face consequences. Whether that was the right choice, I may never know. What I do know is this. People will test you. Family, friends, even your own children will push to see what they can take, what they can get away with, how much you'll tolerate before you break. And if you don't set boundaries, if you don't protect yourself, they'll take everything and call it love. My biggest mistake wasn't setting the trap. It was waiting so long to see the truth that was right in front of me. Jessica never hid who she was. Marcus never hid his weakness. I just didn't want to look. If there's one thing I want you to remember from my story, it's this. Trust, but verify. Love, but protect yourself. And when someone shows you their true character, believe them the first time. Don't wait for the second betrayal, or the third, or the 10th. Don't make excuses for people who wouldn't make excuses for you. Would I do it differently if I could go back? I don't know. Part of me wishes I'd just kept the lake house and said no from the start. But another part of me knows that sometimes you have to let people fall so they can learn to stand on their own. Marcus is out there somewhere, living with the consequences of his choices. Maybe he's learned from this. Maybe he's becoming a better man. Maybe someday we'll sit on this deck together and talk about what happened, really talk and find some kind of peace. Or maybe we won't. Maybe this is just how our story ends. Either way, I'm still here. I still have my home, my lake house, my dignity. And at my age, that's not nothing.